Chicago, threw just 17 touchdowns in his third year as the team starter. He is still there. Bears keeping him on their roster heading into the season, but that doesn't necessarily mean he'll be the starter in week one. In what is becoming sort of a fashionable move around the NFL right now, Jeremy, there's an expectation that they might bring in some competition at that position. And we see Mike Tannenbaum is with us from Indianapolis here this morning, and we'll get Mr. T in here in just a second. But what are we hearing about the possibilities of what the Bears may be looking at?
Well, Greeny, I've spoken to multiple people around the league who fully expect the Bears to add a veteran quarterback, and they will have options. They're committed to Mitch Trubisky for this year. He will likely start the year, but you could have a Ryan Tannehill situation where you add the veteran. He can step in after a few games or midseason, win you some. Derek Carr is an option. I don't think the Raiders are actively trading him right now, but I expect them to listen to teams when they talk at the Combine. Marcus Mariota would be a seamless fit because he's a very similar skill set to Mitch Trubisky. And then Teddy Bridgewater, I'm told, will have a very strong market as a bridge starter for teams in transition.
All right, so then with that thought in mind, let me bring in Mike Tannenbaum, because the Mariota piece of this is the one that intrigued us because of the similarities in fit. The way that Trubisky is most effectively used is the way that Mariota plays. So when you're putting a team together, how much do you take that into account when you're deciding which quarterback you're bringing in to push Mitch Trubisky?
That's exactly right, Greedy. I think Mariota is the perfect complement to Mitch Trubisky. So if Trubisky would stumble, you could put Mariota in there. He doesn't need a lot of reps. You don't have to change the offense. It's a good fit. And one key statistic from last year is Trubisky was 30th in the league in yards per attempt, which means they do so much behind the line of scrimmage. They made a change at offensive coordinator. They added Bill Lazor, but I think Mariota is an ideal fit for that situation.
Acho, your face tells me that you might feel differently.
Come on,
Why?
Mikey, man. If Mitch Trubisky will stumble, Mariota's going to fall. I mean, Mariota last year was 2-4 for the Titans. He 59% completion percentage. Like, Mariota, he just hasn't played well in a while. And you might say it was the Tennessee Titans. Acho, what are you talking about? Then Tannehill goes in there and goes 7-3 and leads them in a playoff stretch. So I don't see how replacing Mitch Trubisky, who can be good at times when used properly, replacing him for Mariota don't make no sense.
I think it just depends on who's out there. There's a lot of, if you bring in Teddy's coming in to start, right? I think you invested capital in him as a high pick. You want to give him another chance, but at the end of the day, they're only a couple pieces away from being a contender.
Yes.
So, I mean, you have to do what you have to do as a GM.
If you want to get really weird, go Jameis Winston. I expect him to either be franchise tagged or be let loose, and I'm told he expects to have suitors as a starter. I don't necessarily think it's a schematic fit, but that would make a statement.
See, that's the part of this that, to go back to the question that I asked Mike Tannenbaum, is how much are you trying to have two quarterbacks who essentially do the same things in the same offense? They didn't in Tennessee when they went to Tannehill. They changed the offense entirely, and maybe they were just better suited to run that.
They did, but bear in mind, Tannehill, he played at Texas A&M. The dude played wide receiver in college for the first 3 years. Like, the dude is an athlete. The issue is, everybody hating on Trubisky as if he was the primary problem.
Right.
As soon as Matt Nagy, the head coach, changed things around and let Trubisky play to his strengths, he was fine. Again, I think it was Einstein who said, if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it too will believe it's an idiot. Something along those lines. Don't judge Mitch Trubisky by something he's not necessarily good at. That dude don't need to be climbing trees.
So philosophical by Acho. Is Mr. T still with us? I wanted to ask. Yeah. Okay, so here's my one question about Trubisky, and I know we can't look at just his feelings all the time, but he was a guy that seemingly was affected by outside noise. If you bring in somebody to really push him, do you think that's a good idea for his success?
Absolutely, Laura. At the end of the day, you have to have blinders on. You have to be tone deaf to be successful, be it a head coach, a quarterback. If you're worried about competition, you're probably not going to be the starting quarterback of the Bears very long. And just one other point I want to address to what Acho was saying, which is in this collective bargaining agreement and in this era, it's really hard to practice two different types of offenses. So if you're committed to Trubisky and this sort of offense, even though Mariota may not be ideal, and I know he was 2-4 last year, it may give you the best chance for success in 2020 without having to change the offense. Now, look, if you say we're going to move on from Trubisky, I love Bridgewater. I like the idea of maybe Winston getting a fresh start. But once you commit to this sort of offense of all these plays behind the line of scrimmage, I think you have to stay with the same sort of offense because in this collective bargaining agreement, it's hard to get enough reps where you could practice two different types of offense.
Yeah, it's a good and very important point. It's an offense that I never got a sense Matt Nagy really wanted to run, but if that's what's going to work, that's what they're going to do. Mike Tannenbaum, great to see you, as always. Thank you. And he's at the Combine, and again this year, we have coverage from the Combine at Lucas Oil Stadium this week, Thursday through Sunday. NFL Live will be there all week on ESPN. Plus, ABC will have special coverage of the linebackers' workouts next Saturday from 5 to 6 Eastern, and NFL Network will have their usual full coverage.
I expect to make an impact, but I don't expect to do nothing like this. I think it's just finding the line between reality and your dreams.
Lob to Williamson. He's got it. Left leg. Welcome to the NBA. He is one of one in NBA history. They're like a man amongst boys. Pell's leading scorer once again tonight. He's got a new career high.
I just want to hoop, to be honest.
Laura, go.
All right, here we are, and we are going to have Sean Farnham talk about drafting some players under the age of 21. There's so many good young stars in the NBA right now, and Farnham, you are going to do this. And let's go number 5. Are we going to start there? Or we want to start with number 1?
We can start with number 5, and I think we should start there because this young man has got a tremendous amount of talent. His future is going to be very bright. It's Trae Young. Trae Young is one of the bright young talents that we have in the NBA. You think about his ability to stretch the floor and what that means for the Hawks. Guys, this is the same game. Just look at the distance here. He has 23 made three-pointers from 28 feet or further away. The rest of the NBA has 10. I mean, that is ridiculous when you think about his ability to stretch the floor. At number 4, I go with Jason Tatum. Now, obviously, his numbers have been fantastic as of late, and you look at what he's meant for this Boston Celtics team this year. He's actually, in isolation basketball this year in the NBA, he ranks as the 5th best most efficient scorer in isolation basketball. Number 3, by the way, defensively in real plus-minus, so he's impacting the game at both ends of the floor. This is where things got a little bit more difficult for me because this talent is ridiculous. All right, let's go to number 3. I go Ja Morant. Ja Morant is a guy that is going to take the Grizzlies maybe from the 2nd pick all the way into the playoffs. And when you watch his highlights, come on, this is ridiculous. This can't even be real. This, by the way, was a 2-point game with under 30 seconds left. And watch this one on the open floor. Yeah, I'm just going to put you on skates. You have no idea where I'm going with the basketball. His highlights might be better than even the next person that I'm putting on this list. And I think this will shock some people because of how much we've talked about him. But at number 2, I'm going with Zion Williamson. Zion's checking in at number 2. Now, we know his level of explosiveness. That block shot, by the way, went into the 4th row. The difference of him, Greeny, I was told with him on the floor versus off the floor, because I watch the show even when I'm not on it, is to the Lakers, to the Warriors. I believe you said that 2 weeks ago, maybe a week ago. Very well stated, sir. All right, which brings us to number 1. And you look at number 1, who's under 21 that's just been doing so many great things for his team? Luka Doncic. I think when you think about Luka, before he got hurt, we were talking about him maybe being the MVP candidate this year in the NBA, and his ability to
Williamson is an iconic figure. I could see him being the face of the NBA right when LeBron James leaves, starting next year. This guy is like box office. You know, Luka has been doing an incredible job.
He doesn't sell like he sells. Like right. He sells more tickets. He sells a lot of things that Luka doesn't.
And that's why I'm picking him number 1.
I understand that.
Because if I'm a GM, if I'm an owner, I need Zion. I need the ticket sales. I need everything.
But what if you're going to get fired if your team doesn't win? Who's going to win more in the NBA in their career, Luka's teams or Zion's teams?
Well, I'll tell you what. Did Luka make the playoffs last year as a rookie?
He did not.
Okay, so if Zion make the playoffs this year, hey, you got to roll with Zion. Hey, Grinny, you tried to trick me, but I got it.
You got it. He usually succeeds in that.
I'm just happy I can hear again. Okay.
I know.
We have a lot more to come in this hour of Get Up as we go. One Cowboys great says it's a slap in the face when people say this about Dak. You'll hear what this is next.